right, we're joined on the Rain Dregs Hockey Podcast by Rob Blake, the general manager of the Los Angeles Kings. And I know you've got enough on your plate, Blakey. You know, you're just starting the regular season with the LA Kings, looking at the team that you've pieced together, wondering how this is going to fit, that is going to fit moving forward. However, a little nostalgia for those who check in on the podcast, all right? So earlier this week, the Colorado Avalanche received their Stanley Cup rings, right? Now, it had to bring back, I'm guessing, some memories of you. It's a long time ago, 21 years. You guys are old, especially you and Ray. 2001 with the Colorado Avalanche. Bitter rivals now in the Western Conference. But in seeing those pictures, seeing that video, did it bring back some of those memories from 01?
Oh, it sure did. I mean, it's always a special time, I think, when you're part of that organization. I saw the other day they had their unveiling of the rings, and they had their little ceremony, and they opened it up. When we were there, obviously the big story was Ray Bourque. So he retires after, and we're having our ring ceremony, but he's no longer part of the team. So part of the ring ceremony involved a magician on the stage. I remember we're all dressed up, and there's a magician, and he's going through his whole act, and all of a sudden he has a big box on the stage, and he spins it around and opens, and Ray pops out with the ring. So it was kind of the way Pierre Lacroix at the time did things. He just took it to a whole new level. But definitely brings back some good memories there with the Avalanche.
When you think of that year, and now of course you were much older and you had been to the finals as a rookie, I believe you were a rookie, right?
Yeah.
In '93. As you apply it to what you want to do now, are there still lessons from there that fit, or has the game changed so much that everything's different?
I think the lessons, maybe not so much on the ice, Ray, but more the lessons about the team. The interesting thing when I got to Colorado, and maybe it was because I came pretty much midway through my career, the only focus in that dressing room the day I walked in was, a little bit before the trade deadline, and they had been conference finals the year before. They had acquired, like I said, Ray Bourque. They had acquired some big-name players. It was all about winning the Stanley Cup. It wasn't about individual success or getting in the playoffs or anything. They had already accomplished all that there, led by obviously Joe and Patrick Waugh and Peter Forsberg and that, but it was all about the next step in winning. So
when a team grows, now, you guys came from basically a full, complete rebuild.
Yeah.
Acquire draft picks, acquire young players before you get to adding assets. Is your plan change over the course of those couple of years, or is it kind of pretty straight ahead?
It's pretty straight ahead. There'll be changes in, I think, the direction the team gets to or the level it gets to on the timing. So we had a player like Fiala this summer that we don't have a lot of that natural ability, natural scoring, the creativity in that. But we felt the team took a big step last year through injuries and everything, battled its way to get in the playoffs. That we could afford to go and get this player now and put him in, the prime years of his career, just to get us to the next step. I mean, we want to get into the level where you're a perennial contender every year. Our holes in the lineup or our needs in the lineups are not as many as they were a couple of years ago, but we still have to progress and get forward.
Right. So in saying all that, Rob, how sensitive are you to, the veteran guys, the guys that have won with the LA Kings before, but they're in the back nine of their career. And we know who we're talking about here. We're talking about Doughty. We're talking about Kopitar. We're talking about Jonathan Quick. I mean, you've been around this group for so long. So how sensitive are you to doing everything within your power to keep the development line moving, but also giving this group an opportunity to win another cup?
Very. I think they're intertwined so heavily within that relationship. It especially starts with your number one center in Kopitar. He led our team in scoring again last year. We wish we had another player that could push to be above that. He's going to continue to be in that role. Obviously, Drew Doughty on the back end commands so many minutes for us in all situations. The first time in his career that he struggled with injuries was last year, and we hope he gets past that. And the interesting one is Jonathan Quick. He came in last year head to head with Cal Peterson. And as we went down the stretch, he was a go-to guy again. He's had a terrific summer. He actually had a real good opening game for us. I don't think our team played very well in front of him, but he's ready to challenge too. So those three are the mainstays from the Cup years here in LA. But we still think they have a lot to produce. And if we can bring in some younger players and then bring in the key free agents or key additions to help fulfill that lineup.
Now, you played for literally 20 years. Like at some point, did you start thinking, gee, I'd like to move into management? Or like I found it hard to think about after playing while I was still playing, even though I still was broadcasting, and most people thought I was a broadcaster, not a player, even when I was playing. But it's like, did you think like, hey, I could see myself in management? Or did you even think of that?
Well, I think every time we sat in the back of the bus with a group of us, we were all managers. Like, what are we doing?
We were good.
Why don't we get this guy? Why don't we get – it's so easy. Just make a trade. Why not? What are we doing here? So, in that aspect, though, I always enjoyed that part. I wasn't really sure post-career what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be involved in hockey. Wasn't sure, actually, the avenue in that. But I enjoyed the understanding of trying to build a team and different things. And I think that just comes with playing a lot of number of years in the league.
How much did you or could you take from when you worked with Dean Lombardi to what became your style? Because eventually it's got to be your style and your way. Yep. But Dean, of course, was incredibly successful.
Yeah, he was real good with special projects and different challenges to not only players but staff also, and having to do more and more research instead of just watching games, understand what actually happens in the game. And he was real big in video, and he was real big in growing the relationship with the players. He would have daily meetings and issue different challenges. So there was a lot of the time that Dean was here, so many good things that he did to help the organization come together and grow. Now,
are you able to? Is that part of your style, or?
Yeah, I enjoy the meetings with the players. It's gotten a little different now because I think the majority of the guys that I had spent time with in the league or even in LA here are starting to go now, with Dustin Brown last year was one of the few, now just with Kopitar and Doughty and Quick, but just building those relationships, that's the fun part. That's very similar to playing, right? It's like when we would sit around in the dressing room or at a team dinner or something, and you get to know these guys, and that to me is still the most interesting and fun part of the job.
Now, when you played, for those that don't remember you playing, like you had, this huge shot, you were physical, you could skate, and I had never really seen it. I just heard about it. And so I was hurt. First game of the year, we're in Edmonton at the old Northlands Coliseum. And we're sitting up in the ring there, Drags, the press box up there. And first shift of the game, they've introduced some players. The Oilers are flying. A pass comes on the right wing to Andrei Kovalenko. Guy was built like a safe. He was like 5'9" and about 200, whatever. Oh my God, he was a tank. And Blakey's on the right side on his D, and Kovalenko's coming down the right side on his wing. And he cut to the middle. And it was the first time we all went, and I had seen it, or I had never seen it. I was like, look out. Like I remember yelling. And Blakey turned his big ass around, and that was it for Kovalenko. Like, finish. Where did you come up with that hit? Like, not in that play, but in your game, because it was devastating. That hit, Blakey, I will never forget the sound of it.
Yeah, no, I do. I remember the timing of that one was actually kind of funny because, they had the big ceremony before I think they referred to him as the Russian tank. And I remember we were hearing it pregame. It just happened that was the player, the very first shift of the game that did cut across the middle. But no, that style of hitting, Ray, it kind of transformed probably my first 3 or 4 years in the league. I had 2 back-to-back shoulder surgeries where, but they were dislocated shoulders, and they happened early in the year. So usually you wear a brace and you get through the season, but it's really hard to hit that way, and it's hard to get your arms up in that. So I just started. I don't know why, turning backwards. It seemed to catch players off guard a little bit. They talk about the train tracks. You kind of get them in a situation where there's no way to go, and I guess just a little more padding back there early on.
I mean, you never see that check anymore, though, do you? Very seldom do you see it.
Seldom. Drew Doughty did one just the other day in preseason. I think he was trying to get warmed up for the game, and it's a difficult timing. I think in our era, Ray, and Darren, a lot of times guys were held up in the neutral zone. There was a lot of sticks, and it slowed down. So you could visualize a guy being held up, and you knew that he was skating into an area where he wasn't going to be able to get out, and then you make your approach based off of that. Nowadays, without that holding neutral zone, these guys are fast and their heads are up. So the timing now has to be even better.
As your team, Blakey, when I look at your roster, I'm like, it's so enviable how many young defensemen you have. And it kind of incredibly, they're all right-handed, which nobody else seems to have anybody of. Yeah. One in particular is Brandt Clarke. So you've already got a lot of young, Sean Walker's come back from his ACL, and Matt Roy is back. And of course, Sean Dursey took the chance last year and jumped, and Doughty is there. But I'm interested in Clarke. He makes the team as a 19-year-old. Can you help him from your experience as an 18-year-old? And I mean, he's excited. I'm sure he wants to get into his first game. It's overwhelming. Can you help him with that a bit?
Yeah. Oh, hey.
I knew he was coming.
Everybody wants to make a comeback.
You guys know, like,
we have cap space. Everybody wants to come back.
We're trying to do work, and this is a daily routine. Like, as soon as I'm into something important, this.
Wait, I gotta study.
He's looking at trying to find cap space.
You know what, Blakey? Before you answer that question, I have on here. As one of my questions, you've worked with Luc for so long. Does it ever change? No, it doesn't, except he's way more gray.
Yeah.
Is he ever gray?
He wants to go over the power play tonight. That's what he does. Coming in for. He wants to know who's going to play the left side and
who's going to be in front of net. Who's going to be in front of net?
But how many times did he make that play, Blakey, on his hand? You go here, and then pass to me, and I'll shoot it.
I'm open.
And white tape because there's no replay, and he could steal a goal.
That's right. You show the mark. You show the black mark on the tape. That's right. Dave Taylor told me that my rookie year. If you don't steal 5 a year, you don't belong in the league.
Video replay is eliminated.
In the old days.
That was it right there.
Thanks, Luke.
Hey, think about that Lemieux thing.
Mario, he wants a Lemieux. Mario. So we got Brendan. Yeah. No. On the Clarke situation, it's interesting, Ray. Last year he had mono at the beginning of the season, so we didn't see him in training camp. Unfortunately, brought him out of Barrie Colts at the end of the year when their season was over, but he had a knee injury that didn't allow him to get in the lineup. So we weren't real familiar hands-on watching him. We'd seen him in junior. We see some of the things he was able to do. Fast forward into rookie camp. He has a real strong rookie camp. And he's one of the players that get better with better players too, because he does make a lot of high-end plays. And I think he needs players at that level that are capable of receiving him and getting it back to him. So we're interested, he'll play tonight, his first game. And we're interested to see him at this level, because it is different than preseason, and we understand that. But, as far as the experiences in that, he's pretty down to earth in the fact I'm not sure a lot's going to bother him. He's got a real similar personality to Drew Doughty, and I had Drew in the other day. It's funny, our relationship with Drew's good because I've had him here for so long, and he came in, before the final day of cuts, and he's like, what are you going to do with the kid? A lot of us want to know what you're doing with him. I'm like, well, what do you think, Drew? I think he helps us. And he goes, oh, for sure he does. And he goes, he's got to work on a few plays, got to protect himself a little bit when he gets retrievals. These guys are going to finish him, but did you see the one shift we had together, 15 seconds? And I'm like, yeah, I saw it. He's a good player and he's going to help you. And I said, who's he remind you of? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, probably a little bit like you. You walk in at 18 and, you know when players are good and players know it first and they want them, but we're going to have to work with them. We're going to have to make sure we manage minutes and get them minutes. The interesting thing is we may have to go 5 righties, in a lineup or 2 just to make sure we're getting these guys the right minutes.
And he can't he can't go to the American League. It's either back to the OHL or not, right?
Yeah, we had the advantage the last 2 years with COVID, with Byfield, with Cali, of some of our younger players under 20 years old, putting them in the American League, which was great. And that's what we're running into with Brant. Like he needs to be challenged against men right now, and that ability is only in the NHL, according to CBA. So we're going to take advantage of it as long as we can here, see how he adapts and move forward.
Rob, you talk about the good young depth that you have, especially on defense. And there are probably times of the year where you don't enjoy getting pestered by guys like me, right? Because we're talking about, all right, well, you got to be shopping for this. You've got to be looking for that. And because you're such a good team, a team that appears to still be on the rise, you're linked to a lot of big game sort of hunting rumors. But in saying all that, I'm not, you're not going to mention names, but is that an area, do you look to add a bigger piece or pieces moving forward this season?
I think so. I think we're at that stage where we're going to continue to identify needs or wants or desires within the organization and be able to fill them. Part of acquiring all that talent, acquiring those draft picks over that 3 or 4 year period was to have that ability at this time to go get what you need. So the fortunate thing we have on defense right now and was the ability, some of these guys are early in their entry level, so that they could still go down to the American League. You're not in a situation where you're trying to run 8 or 9D and you've got a waiver situation and you're kind of forced to move something. We've looked ahead of this, through the summer into this season, that we had the ability for the most part of this season to get you guys touched on the 2 major injuries, Sean Dursey and Sean Walker, who missed all last year with ACL, get them up running to speed and see where they fit in our lineup with a healthy Drew Doughty. And then we, the guys that unfortunately Toby Bjornfoot and Jordan Spence have had to start in the minors because of waiver exempt. And we have it. So we're going to use that ability this year to make sure we're up and running, get a real good read on our defensemen before we have to do anything.
Blakey, I got one question for you before I let you go. Do you still surf?
I try to. It's a little more difficult now when the season gets going, the summertime for sure. So that's where all the good thinking gets done out there, right? Nobody around, you make a lot
Can you get up and off the board as quick as you used to, or no?
Not with 2 new hips. It's taking me a little longer. So I have to go to the old man section now. I'm out of the kids section.
They've shoved you down, have they?
They keep pushing. Soon it'll be pushed right out. So,
well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us today, Rob. I know it's busy, just getting going with the regular season, but we always appreciate chatting with you.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Blakey. Be well. Good luck.